Live on the red, yeah. Give it here, I might be able to fix it. I'll have a look.
Matt's going to be fucking with this for the next,
Yeah, you've ruined Matt.
That's fine, I'll just go look. I'm just intrigued.
Yeah, you're intrigued.
You were like Mr. High Energy. Let me run all of this, and now you're like.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all very much for coming to Shut Up and Sit Down Talks for an hour and 45 minutes. That's crazy. I don't know how long I'm going to do this for. I also want to apologise for the deeply horizontal room, which means mostly. I'm actually quite intimidated.
It's quite scary. I think it's kind of fine because we can just talk to the people who are in the front row the whole time, and they can have the most intense hour of their life.
Yeah, thank you all very much for coming to this. This is exciting. We're very happy to be in Helsinki, home of you guys, and temporarily us.
Woo!
Did you get the throwable mic working? Mm-hmm. Oh, you did?
Hello?
Oh yeah, with
that
faith.
Okay, first off, this is awesome. We've got a throwable microphone. Second off, is everyone loose?
Is everyone okay? Is everyone okay with being knocked out?
Can we have please raise your hand if you're not comfortable with this microphone being thrown around occasionally? Speak now if that
Yeah, it's, again, more danger in the front row than anywhere else.
Yeah, well, it depends how strong you're throwing up. Tom, stand up. So, this is just...
Am I launching?
I believe so, yeah.
Right away?
Audience, are you ready? So everyone
Wow.
try and get away.
I think I threw it at someone who's holding a drink.
We have a problem with this, which is not everybody necessarily
Yeah.
has a question.
Well, that's why it just keeps being thrown
Yeah,
around
you
until
just
somebody does.
Keep throwing it around till someone has a...
As soon as Tom stood up, I had the Mario Party music in my head. So I think if everybody just gets him on board with that feeling of like, or something like that, and then it just gets thrown around, then maybe we don't do anything else. Maybe we just have a nice time, live in the moment.
I'm going to try and bring some order to this farce.
Boo!
Fan of order there.
The Finns love order.
Okay, where is the microphone now? Do you have a question?
In fact, I do.
Wow.
Oh.
What luck? I mean, yes. So, it being Ropecon, I have to ask first, were you roped or conned into coming here? Blink twice if yes.
It's actually pronounced Ropecon.
Thank you for Finnsplaining it to me.
Say again.
Thank you for Finnsplaining it.
I can teach you loads of stuff about. Do you know about tar?
We learned so much about tar yesterday.
Yeah, we did. When we wrote to coming here, we were invited.
Oh, fancy.
We're allowed to be here.
No actual question, but it's still in the mispronounced rope theme. Do you have any board gaming loose ends you wish you could tie up?
That's an actual question.
It's a real question. I feel like.
I've got quite a few. I mean, the one that jumps to me immediately is I would really love to finish my campaign of Pandemic Legacy Zero. The one which is all about, it's a great game, the one about just like bundling Russians into vans, mainly, and having a good time whilst doing it. I got like halfway through that campaign, and I want to go back to it, but it's a tricky thing in our job. That was already a treat for me because that game had already been reviewed and covered. So ostensibly, on a professional basis, there was no reason for me to play it, which is a weird thing to say, and also a mentality we try and push back against a lot of being like, no, we still have to just play stuff because we want to, otherwise, what? But when something's a campaign game, obviously there'll be something else will come up, and I think it was Frosthaven for me. It was like, we're going to play this now, and it's hard to carve out the time to do that.
It's big campaign games is always the things like King's Dilemma. Like I was
just thinking about King's
I got halfway through it, and the pandemic happened, and it's like,
I bought it, and then the pandemic happened. I haven't opened it.
that's so sad.
It is.
But yeah, I think that's mostly campaign games. I feel like at the moment the big one that I'm like, it's not that it's a loose end that I feel like I need to tie up because it's been living rent free in my brain. But it's a John Company 2nd edition that I've been playing loads of, which is a play as the British Empire colonialism simulator. It's horrible, but it's a game that I really, really want to cover, but no one will play it with me on the team. Like I've introduced it to everyone, and they've gone, "Nah, I'm not doing that again."
John Company, not to like immediately lower the tone of like the fun that we're having in this room. John Company 2nd edition that Tom is planning on reviewing was really interesting because turns out that game has a safety paragraph that you read at the beginning, which a board game we've reviewed has never had that. You know, this game covers themes of X, Y, Z. You know, you might be uncomfortable. It doesn't say what to do if you are uncomfortable. But interestingly, you didn't read it out when I played it with you.
Yeah, because you're a chill guy.
Because I'm a chill guy, and
You'd be like, everyone knows about safe words, right? I don't need to talk about that.
But yeah, I think it's in the company of friends here at Ropecon. I'll admit that I got really upset during that game. And
You said it made you feel a bit sick.
I felt really, really, really nauseous. But part of that was because the magic circle of board games, where I'm not going to ramble about this for too long. But me being a history tweed meant that the magic circle got all fucked up because like we were all agreed to play what I thought was just an economic game.
Right.
And then cards were coming out to do with historical stuff that I knew about, and no one else was even reading, like thinking about what the cards represented.
There's definitely something uncomfortable about John Company being this game that has a lot of deep history that almost nobody knew about and was kind of like laughing about and joking about during. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it just felt super peculiar. But I'm very happy for you to tie up that.
Well, that's a big loose end that we're going to try and tie up in an interesting way in the future. I think for me as well, like it is always the fiddly stuff. Like I really want to tie up. I need to review the Spirit Island expansions because I reviewed the main game and I said I would review the expansions in a future video. And then it was like, well, there's another expansion coming out soon. So I thought, okay, well, I'll wait for that. But now I'm in the issue of being like, I need to find people who want to keep playing Spirit Island at increasingly complicated ways. And that's hard.
It's like your own unique, like, Sisyphean task.
Yeah,
for, like,
because
all of
I've
your
got people
friends
who
to
be
go
like,
through.
yeah, I'll play Spirit Island. It's like, cool. Do you want to play it with all these complex variants and stuff? They're like, not really, no.
Do you
And
want to play
then,
it 40 times?
and then I could reach out to the community and be like, find some people who really love that. But then that's not going to be helpful for me as a reviewer to be playing it exclusively with people who really love the deep end complexity. Because it's like, so it's a really weird one. And same thing with I really want to review the Sidereal Confluence expansion.
Oh, yeah.
But it just adds like more complicated stuff. And the best I've managed is just playing Sidereal Confluence again and again and again. And always being like, maybe next time?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I actually have a loose end that Matt needs to tie up. Matt, where's the review of Libertalia Winter Galcraft?
Oh.
This question like starts this is a fun thing, and now we're just doing our jobs on the
Yeah. It's like a team meeting. It's great.
Well, listen, like, that's a good question. Because I said I was going to review that internally. I was like, I will review this. Great.
After I played it.
Yeah. And then, did you give me the copy?
Yes!
Okay, yeah. Well, listen, the problem was, I thought, Libertalia, we love that game. It was one of the earliest games I discovered, probably through or around Shut Up and Sit Down influences at that time, about 10 years ago. And I was just expecting it to be an easy review, being like,
It is an
great.
easy review.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the new version.
Oh, did you not?
No.
I don't know.
Right, well, that's it. Like, and so yeah, it was a really weird bummer of being like, "Hey, here's a game you couldn't get, and now you can only get this version. I don't really like this version." And so in the end, I was like, it felt like one of those weird things of being like, if you haven't got anything nice to say, maybe just don't say anything.
Right, yeah, no, that's
But
fair.
whatever. Because also it wasn't uniform. Lots of people were like, "I really like the new version." I was like, "Cool." So I was just yumming people's yucks for no reason. That's the one. I sometimes it's better to do the reverse. I think. Make you think. Yum someone's yucks.
So someone's like, I hate this, and you're like, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We can't have just throw in a...
Yeah, we can.
Of course we can.
Put your hands up to receive the microphone, but no, it has to
No.
be far away.
None of
right.
this
If you have a
logic.
question, put your hands up. You can stand.
Okay.
Yeah, you can sit though.
You can let everyone get a look at your face for reference, and then you can sit down and people can imagine it.
Hello. Okay, so I have a question for Matt, but it may be involve the entire team. I don't know how the business structure of Shut Up and Sit Down works.
No
but
one does.
Matt, where's the Spatch Tower?
Where's what? The Spatch Tower?
The Spatch Tower.
The Spatch Tower I'm not allowed to talk about in Europe. It's an American exclusive product. We talk about at PAX Unplugged every year. For legal reasons, I'm not allowed to get into any of the details of that part of the business outside of the US states. Interpol and stuff, it's complex. But for those who don't know, it's a product. It's made of, it's a dice tower made of kitchen spatulas.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more than that.
It's caused the company $75,000 in legal fees over the years.
Yes.
It's a bit of a touchy subject.
But I am the lawyer who gets paid
right
from the company.
Wait, what?
So I can't get into it, but thank you for
You're
your
Matthew
support.
Limbles?
Matthew Limbles, super lawyer at large.
I do have a more serious question, if that's fine.
I think it's probably allowed to have a more serious question than that, yeah.
So, for the other two, Tom and Quince, how are you feeling, like halfway into the year, how are you feeling about your board game predictions?
Board game predictions.
No, the thing is
people who aren't aware, we did a podcast. Tom said, "Hey, would you like to do a podcast predicting trends in board games?"
yes, it was at the start of the year. What's going to happen in 2023 in board games?
And then, when we were recording the podcast, Tom said, "Hey, what if the one of us that gets the most predictions right gets to take a board game from the other one's collection?"
That's spicy.
I'm so bad.
Well, no,
but I've got beef about this, because I wasn't on this podcast, but I heard it, and one of Quinn's predictions was Quinn's will review a
role-playing
game. It's like, that's not a prediction.
It is, because it requires me finding a role-playing game. And also, I made this list before Tom put stakes on it. So that's Tom's fault, not mine.
Yeah, okay.
The thing is that the problem with that is that some of mine have come true. Some of my predictions have come true. Yours are hard to prove.
Yeah, I know,
Quinn's has got his fifth prediction is the word dominoes and nothing else. And somehow I was on the podcast, I was like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, he can have that one. I think the thing is, I'm going to rely on audience sympathy, basically. We'll do a poll on the episode.
Effortlessly weird.
Yeah, because one of my predictions has happened, and all of yours are just vibes based.
It's just tarot cards.
Yeah.
I'm really screwed because one of my Shut Up and Sit Down, generally, I was like, all these board game adaptations of video games are bad. And so one of my predictions is Shut Up and Sit Down will continue to not recommend any of them, stop buying them. And then someone said, "Hey, Quinns, you know the Dorfromantic board game?"
Oh yeah, one spiel.
Dorfromantic being a great video game that is basically a board game and then they're doing a physical version. It's like, God damn it, no.
Also, in your predictions was Shut Up and Sit Down will review a VR game, which seems.
No. It was that. Someone's going to do a really good, clever board game using either AR or VR tech.
Right. Okay. Which is maybe it could happen.
Oh, I had such a
It's all to play for.
depressing time at the UK Games Expo when I was talking to somebody, and then it was a part of a big booth that had lots of different games, and they said, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, no, I haven't. It's a new VR platform for board games." And I was like, I was very politely went along and was like, "Oh, cool." And then there was some lost in translation, and I was there to literally just have a quick look, maybe, because I had to go and do something else. And they booked me in for a full business meeting. And then they were like, the guy in a suit came and gave me all the blurb, and I'm like, yeah, I understand VR, I've worked in video games. And then they sat me down for a demo, which was just exhaustively slow and telling me one at a time, hey, try and pick up something from the table. Wow.
There was something
you can throw it if you want. I'm like, yeah, I've told you about 8 times I own one of these headsets.
There was something very funny about the fact that we were like, oh, where's Matt? He's been a while.
And then you just saw me sitting there.
It looked all the life had been drained from his body. He was like a puppet that had been de-animated. He was just sat there slumped in VR. Oh, it was so sad.
I spent 5 minutes being positive, but when I realized that there was no way I could speed up the demo, it was just me. It was just me going, And then they tried to take me for a business meeting to show me PowerPoint, and I had to just say no. I was literally I don't know what's going on. I don't want this. I want to go and play a board game. They didn't even know who I was. I was just another person on this crazy meat grinder of business. They were lovely French men, but it was just an awful experience.
Let's hope that none of them are in the audience.
Let's see. Let's have a new question. Please put your hand up if you've got a question.
It's dice time.
And prepare to receive a thrown in your head.
Oh, it's got to be thrown.
Oh, I like this.
Did anyone ever?
Yeah.
Now I think
Nice.
Oh, wow. Is the mic still working?
Yes.
Lovely.
So, in the last newsletter, you said you're getting experimental, trying all sorts of new things. And one of those things was like live plays of
Yes.
board games. So, question number one: how often do you think this will happen?
Don't know yet.
No.
It's experimental, baby. Yeah, I think that we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing.
We don't know what we're doing.
Firstly, that's number one rule. I should have sit down. But also, we're hoping to start recording some in August and then have things in August and September coming out. That's like the boring answer. But also, the whole like experimental thing was that we don't exactly know what's going to come out of it. We just know that we need to like shake things up a little bit with some fun new playthroughs and stuff. I think I know what because the first playthrough we're going to do is going to be a stress test of the video equipment to make sure it works. And what better a game to do stress testing with than Brass Birmingham?
Oh, I thought you were going to say a Bricklayer.
No, that's for a different thing.
Right.
Which we'll do
Sounds
later.
hardcore. Second question: do you have any plans of doing this with role-playing games?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I have feelings and thoughts on this.
You can have a one-on-one meeting with Quinns afterwards about his feelings on role-playing games.
You know, we have experimented with role-playing, like live actual play role-playing stuff before, and I was just actually talking to a magazine about this in an interview. That I have endless respect for DMs like Brendan E. Mulligan or Matthew Mercer. Like I love the work they do. And it was like a natural fit. Like, oh yeah, no, shut up and sit down. Should do role-playing playthroughs, right? And then what I found out, this is kind of weird because I don't feel this way about board games, but for me, like I love role-playing games so much more than I focus on GMing lots of my personal life. But to me, it's just personal. Yeah. Like it's something that I just care about that makes me so happy, and like commodifying it in that way, like it just isn't. It never quite felt right to me. And like more power to the professional GMs and players who can record themselves playing and having a good time. But for me, like I don't know, people in this room probably have experienced role playing, but like, do you not think that if you were role playing privately with your friends, you would play differently than if you were being recorded and it was being broadcast to the internet?
I think it's the entertainment factor, and I completely understand that because like.
And you're so good at it. You're really good at actual play.
Well, yeah, but that's because like to blow my own trumpet, I'm very good at just live performance and just being funny on demand.
Here we go. Tell us. No, that's very cruel.
Hello, welcome to the show. Thanks. But
He's been working on that character for years.
It was called Bobby Gillespie. All right, he's dead now. When I was role playing, doing some stuff with Quinns, it's like I was thinking about this a lot. About like, there is an element of performance, and that's why a lot of these shows, really, a lot of the big D&D, they're kind of semi-scripted, structured things. It's like it has become more of like a storytelling format now, rather than people role playing. Because in real role playing stuff, it would be like something would happen, and sometimes the GM would be like, come on, you've got like 10 seconds to make a decision, go, 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 if it's a stressful thing. But sometimes you'd have a moment where you'd be like, and you would literally need like a few minutes to like get your head around what you were trying to do or how you were trying to do it. And sometimes it would be so emotionally intense you wouldn't even really be able to even try acting it. You just have to explain it. And like even actually when we were playing one campaign, we kind of had to stop the campaign at the start of the second series because the story arc of my character had just made them such a monster.
This isn't something we were broadcasting. This is something Matt and I were playing personally.
I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't play it. I couldn't get into the character anymore. It was like this character's just broken, and I can't play it anymore in a way that was really odd to be like, sorry, I can't play this character anymore because it's kind of devolved so much that like I cannot do it. And you'd never get that on a because you can't. I have interesting thoughts about it. Well, not interesting, weird thoughts about it, about the popularity being like a really effective proxy for like people having parasocial relationships with a fandom, which allows people to have the enjoyment of seeing people being friends with one another, but through a lens of these people being characters. And I find it very interesting that a lot of the fan art for people drawing the characters of the campaigns often depict the characters with the likenesses of the people who play them, which to me is like the complete opposite of what role-playing is about, right? It's not about being you, but an orc. But that's kind of what that format is, and I think it's a really happy, in lots of ways, it's a really good fit, because it allows people to have that desired moments of emotional tenderness and care and friendship and love. But for the creators, having that barrier of it's not us, it's these characters, I think is actually probably a really healthy thing as well. So I think it's really interesting. But yeah, the bottom line is that like I really like doing it. Quinns is the one who's mad about role-playing games, has no interest in doing it, and I respect that.
I can't do it.
Well, you can a bit. I think you can. I think you just don't want to.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Can I talk about your experience? Because I find this really interesting. I think the audience will. Can I talk about your experience with D&D?
Yeah, sure.
So this I find really interesting, right? So Tom, I was like, I really got into role playing again after the pandemic. After the pandemic, I realised actually I'm happiest when I'm running a role playing campaign. So I really brought that back into my life. And then I was talking to all my friends who might want to role play with me, and I said, Tom, maybe you want to role play. And Tom's like, no, it's not for me. And then I was hanging out with your flatmates, and they told me that actually it wasn't that it's not for me. They said, but Tom, don't you remember when you GM'd for us at university? And I was like, what? And then what? I'll try and I might be getting some of this wrong, Tom, but basically they were like, yeah, no, it was really funny. We didn't do what you said, and Tom was like, no, that's not what happened. And it's like I saw it, man. I saw it. Like you as a GM were really excited for D&D. You got some players who presumably didn't take it that seriously, and that's a horrible feeling. That just sucks. And the fact that translated years later to you being like, no, I don't roleplay. It's like, no, you wanted to at one point. You had a bad experience.
I guess I don't see myself. I see myself in doing the GM role. I like doing the preparation for it and whatever. And then, I find this is like I'm atting my friends here, so sorry, but like when I find it really boring in a role-playing game when, like, you are in a tavern and there's people there, and the first thing they're like, "Let's kill the guy who runs the tavern." And
I take my trousers off.
yeah, woohoo! I hate it. Yeah. But then I think that's also I'm guilty of that though, because I think that in role-playing,
He does take his trousers off in every
time I go
tavern.
to a pub. When I'm doing when I like want to do that sort of thing, I think that because I'm cringing at myself or I'm finding it awkward, I'm not able to like let loose in the way that the best people who do roleplay can. And so I try and make it funny. I try and like diffuse the tension with like goofs. And so if I want to do roleplaying, I think it has to be like comedy bad superhero roleplay or something like that.
I read a thing that I thought would be perfect for you. Like there are ways in, and you shouldn't have to work this hard for a way in, but I was reading about a book which is modeled on the Blades in the Dark rules, but it's basically a role-playing game where you all play monsters who start as a dungeon. And so it's got a bit of like the board game curriculum, like you build out your dungeon together.
Yeah.
If you want slimes to fill a room, you have a scene where you try and recruit the slimes. and then heroes come in occasionally, then you have like this.
So like running a dungeon like a family business.
Yeah.
That sounds great. That sounds really good.
Monsters have different things that they want. Like your management, it's like co-managing a dungeon. And like if you play like a beholder, they think they're smarter than everyone else.
Right.
But it's like you can role play in ways that allow that goofiness. Because this is what I fucking hate about D&D is that like D&D as written is really sincere, and the way people play it often is counter to that, like the way the book is written. I don't know. Like, obviously, I've had great fun playing D&D. It's very weird for it to be that.
Thinking about what you said though is really interesting. Of like, I think that what's odd about it is the fact that most of us, and it might be different for people now, but most of us first tried role-playing when we were like kids, right? And again, like you have that thing of like when things get awkward, you do just try and diffuse it by silliness. No one really wants to take it seriously because when you're younger, the idea of being sincere or serious about anything is lame.
I think when I played who were teenagers, everyone took it more seriously.
Yeah, when you play
that's
Dungeons and Dragons one-on-one with you, Quinn's DMing for his one friend, his own personal Dungeons and Dragons. It would have been terrible.
But I think it's like in a way that I think it's actually like it's a really grown-up thing. And when you play a role-playing game with grown-ups, even if you're not playing something that's super heavy or super thematic, like having those moments where people are clearly a bit awkward because they're wrestling with what they're going to do next or how they're going to handle something. Having a room full of people who are just like, it's cool. Take your time. That's part of the magic. And again, I think when you've got a camera rolling, it's like it's weirdly intimate in a way that I don't think people would appreciate unless you're not doing it, and that's why it's kind of a.
We've spent ages on this question. It's just I think we all find it really.
It's complicated. We should do a newsletter about it. That's the kind of thing.
But to tie back about the thing you asked before about like how many things we're going to do, how often we're going to do, it's like really, I think the really exciting thing about what we're trying to do now is that we're just going to try a bunch of stuff and see what we like doing. And that's gonna be the basis of
That'll
like,
drive it,
We
yeah.
kind of already think, oh well, this will be the thing we probably like doing, but it might not be. And it's quite exciting to not have anything being driven other than like, let's see what we like doing,
Yeah.
and we'll do that. Throw the dice.
If anybody has a question, please just throw it. Oh, we've got some.
On a big throw. That'll do.
Yay. I never catch anything. So my question is for Matt and Quinns. It's about Tom. So we're gonna talk about you now.
That's okay.
So at what point did you guys realize that Tom is definitely weird enough?
It was just the fact that every time we went to the tavern, he'd just take his trousers off. I mean, are any of us ever truly weird enough?
I thought you were going to say, can any of us really be sure about Tom? What do we know? I mean, it's the application video, isn't it? Like, that nobody has ever seen. And that Tom
Yeah, and no one will ever see. Yeah.
No.
There was a terrifying energy to that, which was great. It was basically like it was a really clever idea, especially for I'm really bad at remembering things. So I guess because like order of like drawings and words
so
and.
rather than having a whiteboard, it was like imagine you fill the whiteboard with all your points about. It was Game of Thrones, the board game was your application video for the job. But then imagine you rather than a whiteboard, you rip that up into all individual bits of paper and then put them around your house. And then the camera person followed you as you ran around your house in one take, being like,
Just pointing at stuff and being deranged.
You know, we did it in one take, but it took about like 30. Yeah. I kept the biggest problem
That's
was,
how it works.
the biggest problem was that it included going up the stairs, and I'd get to the top of the stairs and I'd be like so out of breath that I was like, ooh, take another break, which made the one take way less impressive.
But that's the kind of weird endurance and stamina, and we can see that stuff when you've made it. It's like we weren't like, wow, we understand the nature of how these things get made. It's like I was explaining to someone earlier, like, I love it when you were the worm. And it's like, yeah, being the worm is really hard. And I dress up in a sleeping bag, but I have to hold the sleeping bag in a careful way so it doesn't, so the zip, and there's another color that might show. And like when I'm moving around in it, it means I have to move around as if I don't have limbs.
Like a worm.
Whilst also keeping like a good grip without moving my arm. It's like...
There's a real craft to it.
When I then have to... But that's it. Like all I'm doing is pulling a stupid face, but actually trying to pull the stupid face consistently when you're doing all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite hard.
That's why you invoice for so much money.
So much. And my lawyer, who helps with the paperwork.
Tom, was there a time that you knew you were weird enough to do the job?
I mean, I don't know.
The day when you were like,
I think I felt proud of myself that Matt, like, because all the other interns got a lot of they got months, and I got a couple of weeks. Was kind of like because I was very keen.
You're the
like,
shadow intern.
Yeah, I think most interns got like 3 months, and I got 2 weeks. So I was very keen to impress in those 2 weeks. So much so that Matt sent me on like a mission down to Brighton to meet Quinns and take because you'd left the camera equipment with Quinns. So I had to go down to Brighton, meet Quinns for like an hour, and then he was like, "Get out of my house now." And then with the camera equipment, I had to bring it back to London. But instead of bringing it straight back, I did a detour in Southampton where I filmed a full video review of Pipeline to try and impress, which was kind of like the silliest. Like, I don't know. That was
that was the review where you poured oil on yourself.
that was I mean maybe I knew when I poured 4 liters of vegetable oil on myself. And it took that's footage.
Yeah.
That's footage that shows up in the Pipeline review
Yeah.
for about 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And it took me like 2 days to get all the vegetable oil out of my body. It was horrible.
It was deeply upsetting though, because I saw it and I was like, I could see how much vegetable oil you were having poured over yourself. But unfortunately, yourself and your friend who were filming it just weren't quite good enough at videography to really capture it that well.
No.
So it was like, oh, that's a shame.
It looks
that's
like
clearly
water.
a horrible thing to do, but you can't really tell what's happening. So it's not really that great.
Yeah.
You're just an oily boy for no good reason.
I was so greasy. I'd just be like, I'm not kidding when it was like 2 days. Like the day afterwards, I would leave like slight residue when I would sit down and move around. So I still just had this thin film on me at all times.
You still have that thing.
Thank you.
We have another question. Maybe someone at the back who's been very patient. How
Here we go.
How strong is
Go long.
throwing arm? We might take a couple throws to get. Someone's getting.
Someone has died.
I think we need a lawyer. Hey.
Hello.
My question was about crowdfunded games. we had a trend for the past several years of games getting bigger and bigger and more miniatures and more expansions and more boxes and stretch goals and add-ons. And I think there's at least part of the community is kind of fed up with that.
I
Don't
love
know
it.
about you. And so what are your thoughts on that, and what are your hopes for the next trend in crowdfunding games?
Do you want to talk about what is it, Batman? I forget the exact
Batman Arkham City Chronicles.
No, the Batman miniatures.
There was a worse one than that I've never told anyone about, and I can tell people about that in a minute. I need to do the unprofessional thing I often do because my medication makes me need the toilet sometimes. I've got to go and do a wee.
Yeah!
That's fun, isn't it? That's fun.
Bye, Matt.
Entertainment.
I'll talk about Matt while he's gone. Because it was this particular.
I gotta go. I gotta go do something as well. So.
Because it's Batman Gotham City Chronicles, where it was a Kickstarter thing with so much stuff, and then we were like, oh, well, for the thumbnail and for one shot in the video, we'll just like spread everything out. So every single thing that came with Kickstarter, we'd spread out on the table, and then it's quite a lot of work to do that. You have to unpack everything and then separate it out by layers, and then we were just surrounded by it, and just the feeling of like illness, because this was a game we were telling people not to buy, but you can't stop it from being manufactured.
Yeah.
So like just the sort of, I mean, the climate impact, the amount of oil, like it was, and also time and love that had gone to this thing.
Yeah.
And that was like that was years and years ago. But I think we always remember that as like, I don't know, it was just a sort of very peak depressive.
That's the thing that's scary about it, is you look at a game that's got that much like plastic in it, and you look at it and you're like, wow, how many do they make of these? 10? And you look at Kickstarter and it's like, there are hundreds of thousands of these and they're going into the landfill. Like, that's what I thought was so interesting about, Matt was talking about, was talking about a game called Earthborn Rangers, which is a Kickstarter game as well, I think. I could be wrong about that. But like, when you're done with Earthborn Rangers, you can bury it because every single part of the game is biodegradable. And so, to answer the second part of the question of like, what do you hope the next trend is? Biodegradable games. Games you can bury. Because it is a little bit like, yeah, it's like, where does this go? Sure, you can get rid of a game or go to the charity shop, and then it goes to another charity shop, and another, and then one day the world's going to end. And that's chilling to have to think about that when you look at Batman Arkham City Chronicles. No.
I thought it was interesting that you said some board gamers are getting sick of that. Like, I mean, you don't have to decide with us. Like, show us who here in this room is like, still a big fan of, like, you get excited with a big game, but like, not really know how. Come on, someone's like,
Yeah.
But there you go. Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong getting excited about like a big game. Like when Oath arrived for me, it was like, because it's a big chunky box, it's like full of so much stuff, and I was so excited. And that feeling of like, that is a weirdly large part of board games, is being excited about a big game arriving.
I think it's just being excited, and bigness is a shortcut to that.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I mean, we like envelopes and legacy games and little packages because we like opening
Was
things.
it Rob Davio that says that's like the most important part of a board game?
It was some R&D done by Hasbro. I don't know if they really got to RA monitors, but Hasbro got the data, scientific data, on how excited people are when they receive a board game, and they track this on the graph, because Hasbro has a stupid monopoly.
Because they're Hasbro.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so they show that when people buy a game, they're excited. Then when they get it home, they get really excited. Then when they take off the cellophane, they get more excited. When they open it up, they get really excited. And then they get the manual out and it goes. And that excitement never, and I feel this, I don't know if you two feel it, but that excitement never gets that high again. Not when you're playing it, not when you win.
That's kind of what I want to talk about in the Frosthaven review with the insert at the end. Is like, building the Frosthaven insert was like the most excited I've been for a game ever. And because it's like, you're just so, it's just the possibilities are like, so in your head, this game is like the biggest thing you're ever going to play, and it's so exciting. And then immediately you start playing it and you're like, because it's never going to live up to the insert.
I get this with roleplay games all the time. If I'm planning a session, I get so excited and I do all my prep, not too much, because too much prep makes an RPG worse.
Right.
But then
That was my problem.
But regularly, before an RPG session, I'll be so tired of prepping that I'll be like, I just want to get this over with. Like, I've already peaked myself alone, and then my friends are coming over, and I'm like, oh god, no.
Not again.
Yeah, no.
I get like that when I've really learnt a game from the manual. I'm like, okay, right. So it's like I spent so long understanding these rules. Now I have to explain them to somebody else. It's like, I'm tired.
Why can't everyone just read the manual when they're at home?
But
Save me a whole lot of time.
I want to tell these folks about the worst thing I've ever seen, because I haven't talked about it anywhere, because I kind of didn't want to do it on a podcast, because I just didn't want to give it any oxygen as a thing. And I'm trusting everyone in this room that you're not going to go and buy it. Because if you do, then I might hate you. Basically, I was so excited about it. It was such an easy win. It was a remake of
V Commandos.
V Commandos, yes. He knows what it is. V Commandos is a small little box with some cardboard tokens, and it's a bit like the Commandos old PC game of just like...
Repurposed into the Assassin's Creed board game, right?
Yes. So this is it. It was like, V Commandos, great, not quite amazing, but then it's like, hey, it's coming out repurposed as an Assassin's Creed game. Fantastic. That'll be great, right? No. It was this gigantic box full of plastic things. And I was like, why are there so many plastic people?
Doesn't it
in
have
this?
like a tower in it that's like this high? And
It
it's
has
just made
lots
out
of things
plastic
that...
for him to do his little magic jump.
Yeah, it does have plastic towers that are about 6 inches high that go on the board and really serve no purpose other than being like, it's Assassin's Creed, you've got to have a tower, right? But then it had so many plastic characters in it, so many figurines, and I just thought, why has this got so many figurines? And then we were playing the game, and it was like, well, okay, the figurines are instead of the little cardboard discs to represent the baddies, but it wasn't really very good. They kind of somehow managed to turn a game about sneaking around and stabbing people, which sounds like the ideal Assassin's Creed game, in something that didn't really feel like that anymore. But the worst thing was you got to the end of the mission, and I realized that the majority of the plastic pieces in this gigantic box of bloody plastic pieces were then to track your metagame resources and your base. And you had a separate board where you then be put 5 mercenary figurines on the board to remind you that you have 5 mercenaries. Put these, and it was like...
They were counters.
They were not even counters. It's like this would be like a little piece of paper or something that you would tick off. We got 4 of this resource, but instead of just being 4 of this resource, 5 of this, 6 of this, you had this entire sideboard covered in plastic pieces. And it's like, you can't pack that away, you know? You still need to write down what it was, but it made me so angry. Because
you're still hot.
they had the easiest open goal of a palette swap ever. And I thought, great, a video game board game that's actually going to be wicked. They somehow made the mechanics worse and less thematic, and then put so much plastic in it that I feel ill when I think about it. It was like they literally had the miniatures first, and then they were like, how can
Now we've got to do a game.
How can we
Yeah.
fit these miniatures around the mechanics? How can we force plastic into the mechanics? And it would have been better if they hadn't. It would have been better if they're like, hey, these 30 Italian militiamen, they don't do anything. They're just, you want them, right? And that's, I really love what Awakened Realms are starting to do now, of realizing that there are people who just want a box of cool miniatures, and there are people who want a game, and then selling a version of the game that's like both of these things, but then also being like, do you just want the plastic toys?
Yes.
Do you just want, I don't use the word toys in a derogatory way there, it's just like...
Board games are toys.
Exactly, I have no issue with that, but it's like giving people the option, because if you're doing that, then it means at some point you have to be designing a version of the game that doesn't use them, and that is an important part of the process.
Yeah. Let's grab another question. Yeah, no, you got a cup.
Oh, I drank his water.
You drank his water. There's another one.
You can have this one.
You get a cup of water per question.
Thank you. Work for my water.
Yeah, you can have some more water.
Hello. So I've been thinking about the eagerness of people to discover new games and the difference between board games and RPGs. I wanted to pick your brain about that. So with board games, it often seems that people are chasing the new hotness and they are buying way too many games, more than they have time to play. And people get very excited about new mechanics and new innovations in the board gaming sphere. But in RPGs, it's almost the opposite, it seems sometimes. One of the biggest trends of the recent years has been the OSR, the old school revival, going back to those sometimes slightly clunky 70s war game adjacent things. So do you think this is a fair comparison, and why do you think it is?
It would be, so the OSR movement, if you're not aware, is the movement of people trying to make lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different games that kind of feel like second edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
If board games had the equivalent, and I've realised I'm super excited about this, it would be like 20 different publishers all trying to make Monopoly. Which would be cool.
That would be so good.
No, that would be kind of interesting. I mean, role-playing is weird. But I'm wondering if there's a parallel between because OSR is trying to replicate role-playing in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's kind of what lots of board game publishers
and then bringing them back.
But I
and,
feel like with the differences with role-playing games, learning the rules and understanding how things work is the thing you have to do to then be able to enjoy the thing. It's like, once you understand the basics of how it works, now we can start enjoying the thing. Whereas I think actually with board games, and why I'm a little softer, I don't like the hype machine when it becomes big Kickstarters and stupid minis, but I think part of the joy of a board game is sitting around a table and you all trying to work out how something works together. And I think that's what everyone's looking for with that new thing, is that moment of everyone going, oh, I've just realized if I could do that. And, you know, that unpicking it. Like, that's why I love what we do. I love to just be presented with a new system and learning how to use the system, whereas that's never a thing for me in role-playing games.
People who love board games like learning new systems together. People who love role-playing games, learning a system is... I mean, I'm a dweeb for RPG mechanics, but yeah.
Yeah, we know.
People are like... This is a huge barrier, actually, between people trying to get out of D&D, because... And this is what's, again, really irritating about D&D. D&D is so complicated.
Yeah.
Like, it's more demented than, like, almost any other modern RPG now. So people finally learn D&D, and they learn, you know, what all the different stats are, what alignment
And they imagine that learning a new thing is going to be as hard.
Exactly.
They're like, oh, I can't do that again. Like, I can't learn to drive a backwards car. I've just learned to drive a car. You know, it is frustrating. And I think that's the thing is, it's with D&D, it does feel like work. But with other mechanics, like, you know, with Blades in the Dark is a great example. It's not that complicated. And a lot of the rules are not just like, you have to understand to do this so you can enjoy it. It's like they amplify the ways that you're able to enjoy it. They're rules that give you ways to do things. Whereas...
No one playing D&D is like, wait, my constitution increases my hit points?
Yeah.
That's wicked. Whereas in Blades in the Dark, it's like, you know, wait, you're telling me I can do a flashback to something before this scene? And
Right.
Yeah.
Or like you were telling me I can survive this fall without breaking a limb, but I have to take a piece of paper from you and it says something on it and I don't know what it says. Like, you know, that, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I think, I don't know, I do like that both, as opposed to, I don't know if this is really sure about video games, I really like the sort of institutional memory that has like, it feels like it has grown up in board games and role-playing games in recent years. Like, in the 90s, it felt like it was just the new thing. And now board games and role-playing both feel old enough that people are going back and rediscovering stuff that
Yes.
were happening in the 80s and 90s. And I think that's super cool. It makes us feel like we're connected to history. You end up rediscovering designers who are brilliant but maybe not recognized in their time. I don't know. I think old games are good and new games are good.
You're so brave.
Brave. Finally someone says it.
I feel like you're some more vote for me. That's great. I feel like that wasn't even the question that got asked. Just take the phrase. But yeah, let's have another question, please.
Has anyone else here ever played Gunstar Heroes? Because I'm getting some real Dice Palace vibes from you.
Okay, sorry I dropped it. That's okay. First of all, love your show. Second of all, my question is, how do you guys, individually or as a group, decide what board games to review? Do you go to
We've got like cloaks and knives and stuff, and
Wait, what's that a reference to?
like being a weird cult or something.
That joke needs work. I didn't understand that.
Step one to choosing whether we want to review a board game. Because that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Play it. Step two, is it good? Yeah, we should review it. And that's our job. It's very simple.
We do, I don't know, we do disagree, but the times that we disagree, like, when we disagree about a game, that's so rare, that's like an instant review. And so it's like, wait, we both have strong feelings about this game. That's great. If you both like it, that's also obviously a review. If you both don't like it, that's definitely not a review.
It could,
Unless, I mean, that's the thing. Is like this. It's such a weird like. When we break it down, it makes it seem like there's a science to it, but it is just vibes all the way through.
pure vibes. Which is immensely irritating for publishers.
We've met publishers who like have told us drunkenly, it's like, we've worked so hard trying to figure out what games you review.
Just tell me what you like.
Yeah, and we have now got to the point where sometimes I see games and I'm like, has that specific asset or thing been used because they are literally trying to get our attention? Like when you have like pairs and stuff in things, you're like, And in fact, like one game like had our names sort of in it in a way that I'm like, yeah.
I think the main thing is, especially, this may be interesting for you to hear, but like when I started working for the site, it was like the only thing that would mean that I want to, the thing that made a game worth reviewing is whether, if I had something interesting to say about it, past, is it good or is it bad? I think that like I'm trying to avoid, or we all, like it's, when you review a game just because you like it, it feels like you're not doing your job properly in a weird way. It's like you want to like it and also have a little something extra on the end to talk about that's a little bit more.
I think
zesty.
sometimes it can just be a springboard for having conversations about games. I think
exactly.
that's okay as well. I think the hard thing is that the only time when we don't review things is when we played something and none of us like it, and it's not really a game that many people are talking about.
And
because
it's and on the reasons that we don't like it just aren't interesting as well.
Yeah.
That's always the thing. It's
yeah,
like,
and it just feels like, hey, yeah, I think you would say, hey, it's something you've never heard of before. It's bad. Carry on. But it means that like we do have definitely there are some other people in the industry, some other people who like do the same thing as us, who do think that we are contrarians, because often the only time where we will post a negative review is if we've played something, we think it's quite bad, and everyone else is saying it's amazing, and at that point it's like, well, we probably should review it, because it's something that already is in the sphere and people are being told it's great, and if we don't think it is and we have reasons why, it feels important to add them, but it then just means that it looks like we're just being like purposefully only being negative when other people love things, which we are, but not for that reason. Because often we just play things, and it sucks as well. Like, it's so annoying when everyone's like, everyone loves this game. We sit down expecting to have a really great time, and then we're like, oh, we didn't have a nice evening. I'm sad for me.
that irritation then works its way into the review, where we're like, we had such high hopes.
The other thing I was going to say is that in terms of how do you choose what to review, here's the thing. Filming video reviews is really hard.
It takes so much time.
The cameras are heavy. And, the tripod, my tripod has like 8 buttons that I have to press if I want it to go up.
You're scared of that thing.
It's so heavy.
It looks like it could cut off your fingers.
Magnus written down the side. All tripod branding, by the way, is super crazy, weirdly masculine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is like.
You do get like really good muscles like here and here, just from like moving lights around and moving
Yeah,
cameras
you're
around.
shredded. Look at him.
Yeah, it's unreal, right?
But but editing is sometimes editing programs don't work. My point is that there's so much energy that goes into filming a video review. Often what we review is as simple as like, has this game like conjured a little spurt of energy for me to go in and do the 19-step process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always so jealous of people who talk about writing. It's like, cool, yeah, writing a script. The thing that I do just at the start of this incredibly long. It's like, fine. That's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Takes me no time at all. There we are, script. It's like the idea that that's the end of your job. It's like, I'm so jealous. Because it's the easy bit. It's everything. And like, when I first started like working with Tom and teaching him how to do stuff, he's like, I hate this program. I hate DaVinci Resolve. It keeps crashing all the time. Doesn't do what I want it to do. It does this weird stuff. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to video editing. It's like, this is already way easier and more reliable than it was like 5 years ago. It's
Definitely true that the video creation process gets less fun the longer it goes on.
Yeah. It's
And
like,
when you're ready to hit publish, it's like, I'm done.
yeah, it's like welcome to video editing. Yeah. You are in hell now. And it's even more hellish when you know that putting the time in to make it really good will make a huge difference, but it just means, again, you're spending another 10 hours in hell. So yeah, it is weird. It is that like, do we like it enough? But also, am I willing to commit like 50 to 60 hours of my life on this planet to immortalizing this thing in a transient video that might not go any. It's like there is a point where sometimes you think, yeah, I'm going to review this, and then you kind of can't see the end of the road, and you're like, no, I'm not going to.
Interestingly, we had this recently. We were talking about this with a lot of really solid Euro games now.
Yeah.
Where you were saying.
There's like infinite good Euro games at the moment. Like you pick up a Euro game off the shelf, like just a standard one, and you know that it's going to be like a 7 out of 10 minimum. Like there's so many of them that it's like less interesting to write a script about them because you're like, it's good. Bye. Like that's the whole video.
Yeah, it doesn't make you want to set up with 8 buttons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would make our job so much easier if that was the start and the end of the process.
You could just get a new tripod. You've had that one for about 12 years. It doesn't really work. One of the legs.
Let's go back.
Yeah, fair. But I think also like that this has led to a thing over the years. People have always been that, oh, shut up and sit down, only review X, whether it's like party games or whatever. Like, it's because there've been windows of time whereby we've like maybe reviewed a bunch of Euro games and people are like, this is great, this is what I want, and then we start reviewing some like party games and they're like, oh, this is not for me anymore. And it's just because you need to mix it up, and so we tend to be like, you'll do something for a while, then you get excited about a different genre, a different space, and it always circles back around. It's just you have to follow. It is as simple as they have to follow what makes you excited enough to sit down and work on something for like 50 hours.
Should we do some rapid fire questions?
Speed questions?
I'm just going to suggest that because this room, I don't know if you two have noticed, is
Ooh. Is it?
You can't say, is it?
I'm breezy. I'm wearing shorts, baby. Woo!
So,
You're wearing pants.
Yes.
let's throw that the cube around. So we got so many hands.
The Cube of Truth has been launched.
We cannot take 5
Hello,
minutes for
is this working?
Yes.
So, first of all, huge fan. Been watching you since the Escapist days.
Oh wow.
And I have an accusation and a question.
I
The
love
accusation
accusations.
is you, Quinns. In your video about role-playing games on Shut Up and Sit Down, you made a great point that the difference between role-playing games and actual plays is like the difference between sex and porn. You know, the performative aspect and the intimacy. It's a great point. I know it's a great point because I made that same point 6 months before in a Discord discussion. So you stole my point.
I can guarantee that neither me or Quinns have the attention span to go on Discord. Like, we just don't do it.
That's
we
why
should. We should pop into Discords and be like, hello, but
Yeah. That's why you got me to go and do it.
You're
Switch.
providing the opportunity to say,
I stole it.
was me. I did steal it.
I knew it.
And there's not a thing you can do about
I know. Anyway, my real question is,
Do you need legal representation?
the other day I was in a local board game store and I see on the shelf there's a board game, there's a sticker on it that says recommended by Shut Up and Sit Down. And you've been kind of riding this wave of modern board games becoming a huge thing. So how do you feel about your own influence on the design and the scene of the whole board game renaissance we're going
I think it's pretty good. Because, like, the games that we like,
They're
there's
good.
now more games like that. So I think that's good. Thanks. I mean, it would be dishonest, wouldn't it, to be like, oh, there's now more of the things I like in the world. This sucks. Like,
I think there's a
For us personally, it's good that there are more games that we like out there, right? Like, that's it. That's all we can speak from, right? That perspective.
I think that there's a like if your the thing is we're always trying to make funny jokes and shut it down. So if your game has something we can make fun of that's bad, we'll do it. If your game have art design that's a bit poor, we'll make. You better be ready for us to broadcast 2 solid minutes of jokes about it to the entire internet.
have you decided to put a signed black and white photograph of yourself in the box? It's like, we will. We all make choices.
I feel like, well, like, is your game a little bit racist, maybe? We'll try and pull you up on that to the best of our ability. There's 3 white people. But I think there's like, I want to say that, like, you know, maybe Shut Up Sit Down has contributed to a more holistic, like, sort of bit of, like, design. Like,
I hope so.
The nicest emails I get are when I get emails from designers and board game designers who have said that, like, they watched a recent video of ours and a discussion we've had about an element of game design has, like, dislodged a problem in their head that they've been stuck on for like 6 months. Or actually, I got a really angry email from one game designer who's a nice guy, but he was just like, I've just spent like a year and a half and I've just given up on trying to solve this problem. And then, like, just shipped it. And then now I watch this video and it immediately lists, like, you've just revealed to me what I needed to do. And it's like, why didn't you do? But it was, you know, it was loving. And that for me is more important than, like, we've shaped the influence of the types of games. But also, I think, like, I gotta say, like, people are always like, oh, shut up and sit down, don't like heavy. And it's like,
We love heavy games.
we love, I think if we loved only one type of game and we were, like, really just pushing for that, then it might be a worse influence. But I think we do like a broad enough selection of things that, like, really, I don't know if we are, like, pushing a certain type of game. I think we're more just, like, looking for game design that is interesting and iterates and is thoughtful.
as the person who suggested we do rapid fire questions, I feel like I'm going to be the
You're the taskmaster?
the cop here.
Okay.
Sean.
Like, shut up, Matthew.
That's fine.
Throw the cube. I'm going to try and get.
It's fine. I'm in cube jail.
Yeah, you've been talking about some good games and some bad games, and I recently had like a first experience in board gaming playing a game that was so bad it was kind of good. And that's more common in like movies and maybe video games, but have you had similar experiences with board games?
Every, oh god, I wish I knew what it was called. I
On a recent podcast, we talked about a game called Dirty Pig, which is a game which is just a bunch of cards with pigs that are covered in mud. It's maybe the worst game I've ever played. But there was something kind of delightful about playing that game, and Matt was on the table, like, next to us, just hearing the rules explanation, and me having to be, like, just talk through the specifics of if a dirty pig can be pretty, and if you can make a pretty pig in a barn.
Just listening to people playing that game was one of my best gaming experiences. And
I
just people being like, but you can't, I can make my pretty pig a dirty pig, right? And people going, no.
No.
And I'm just like, this is the best. I don't care.
There was, I also think that one of the formats that we're excited to, again, have a little experiment, have a little dabble with, is this idea of, like, going on, we don't know what it's going to be called or what the format exactly is, but basically going onto eBay, buying a game based purely on the cover art, and then playing it, and then seeing which is, like, the best, worst game. And I just want to, because friend of the show, now part of the show, Pip, sent me a game, which I can't get the picture up, which would really kind of sell it for you if you could see it. But it's a game that was called, it's called Farming. It's got a man looking kind of sad on the cover, and it has like a big punch quote in full capital letters across the front that says, "Deal with farming hazards as they occur." And like that kind of stuff.
That could have been like a Eurogame released this year, though. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm into it.
That's great. Let's throw the cube. See, I'm getting our response.
Yeah, no,
times down.
we've sort of worked out the format now, haven't we? Like, let's throw the cube is the new catchphrase for this, you know?
Hello.
I've been in board gaming long enough now that sometimes there's old games that have distasteful themes or mechanics, like you mentioned earlier. Right?
What like? I've never seen one before.
Real quickly, is there a game that you like in the past that you wish was either reskinned or reworked to take out something? Like, just my personal example is I love Endeavor. That's one of my favorite games. But boy, is that a tough game to pull out when you're like, listen, slavery is the best thing to get into early on.
Is Endeavor the game where slavery can get banned halfway through?
Sort of, but it's shockingly hard, and you lose like 0 points for getting into slavery. Like, it's not a. It seems like it would be a high risk, high reward mechanic, and it's. That's what made me think of it. Yeah, it's a totally new game, but it gets rid of.
You're enslaving the populations below the sea.
Yeah, but like, no one advocates for manatees, so it's it's fine. But anyways, yeah, but that's for. Is there a game that you like that? Something like Chinatown that you're like, boy, I wish this was any other theme.
There's loads. There's loads.
I mean, the big one, I think, in Jonathan's history is Tales from the Arabian Nights,
Which is getting rethemed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but...
Well, it's a new thing, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that has, like, tons of deeply problematic content. But is it being rethemed?
No, it's like a remake of it, which is Tales from the Arthurian Nights, which is, like, based off far more boring British folklore.
That's a shame for me, because, like, I do really like the, like, Islamic and Arabic representation.
Yeah, it's just until it gets... yes, until it gets bad. Yeah. I also think Chinatown is a good example of a game that, like, isn't... It's like...
It's not inherently racist.
Yeah, but it like some of the art design is a little bit, and yeah, I think there's room for that. And also, like, again, going back to John Company again, it's kind of a game that it's a shame that it's about the East India Trade Company because it's a great negotiation game. Yeah, I know, but like it makes it a much harder sell that it's like, hey, do you want to sit down for like 3 hours? Well, not 3 hours, like 4 hours and talk about colonialism. Most people are like, no, I have a life.
I mean, also, like, I think anything that's come out like 15 years or more ago, like any board games I played a while ago, like I have repeatedly, not just with board games, but with everything, but board games as well, like going back to things, being like, I love this is great, and then opening up and realizing it's like all of the art is like incredibly drawn with a male gaze, and I just didn't notice or remember because it was only like not that many years ago that I realized that was a thing and thought, yeah, that is weird, isn't it? And it was just background noise. There's a lot of that of being like, oh, we could play this, it'll be fun. And then you get it out and you're like, oh, actually, maybe not. Maybe let's just put it in a cupboard.
Throw the cube.
Oh, getting stolen.
Neighbor
privilege.
That was a tiny throw.
Sorry. Quick two-parter. First, please send our love to Ava Foxford. And when you come back, I hope that they're with you. It would be great to see you all as one big group, because I don't know that I've ever seen all 4 of you in one place, so how can I be sure?
We did that.
We have been in one place, yeah.
We've all met each other.
Secondly, as the guy in my group who always wants to play with all of the expansions, can I please ask for more expansion content? Because some expansions really make the game better, and once it's been reviewed, then we never hear of it again.
Many of them don't. It's very, it's what we were talking about earlier, it's very challenging to cover expansions because setting up that tripod with 8 buttons to go back to a game you've covered before, and so many games are already designed expansion, then financially it's probably because they know it will sell.
Yeah.
Because they know the game's popular.
What we tend to do is like the one exception is if there's a game with an expansion and the expansion kind of makes it a great game when it wasn't before and they're bundled together in a way, that's perfect. But
Or if we're reviewing a game and it's been out for a while and it's had its expansions, or if we're reviewing all the expansions at once in the middle of summer for like...
But like also the best thing you can say mostly is like if
It's
you
good.
really, really, really like playing this game loads, then this is good to play it more. And it's like people can kind of work that out.
Expansion time. Expansions are for podcasts.
Yes.
That's the rule.
Expansions of a podcast. It's a lot of B-roll. That's the thing. Like I remember when we did the House of the Dragon like thing for Game of Thrones, and it was just like, oh god, I changed the color of the tablecloth halfway through because I was just bored of the color red. I was like, I can't. I filmed so many little things.
Taskmaster.
It is. Let's do. Okay, we're locked up. Let's toss the cube 3 times. There's someone at the very far. Oh, okay. That's
It's already been tossed.
So that, and then a huge.
Yeah, and you've got a par of 2.
I got a quick one for Matt. I follow your Twitter. I follow all your Twitters, but mostly Matt. Do you post that good morning, good night picture, or is it a bot?
Oh, it's not me. It's it's a bot.
He pays a guy to do it. For
Small guy. No, I love that people think I could do that. It's like I really do not have my shit together.
I thought
like,
that you might not be able to do that.
I mean, I forget to eat breakfast a lot of the time. Like I can't. Like the idea of me doing a thing every morning and every night manually for like a decade. It's like no.
Yeah.
I'm a mess. Thanks for coming.
I can sympathize with you. I'm a mess too. My other question is that, oh no, Overlord Kairos has banned board game collections. You can only keep one. What is it?
One game for the board game collection.
Oath.
Tigress.
Ooh, that's a good... Oh, can I have Tigress, actually?
Yeah. Then I'll quite have.
Wait, no, Bonanza. Oh!
Oh yeah, sorry, a card game. What if I just take it?
Just one. Just one
Mm.
game.
Honestly, my answer may be playing cards.
Yeah, it's a smart answer. It's a boring answer, but
Really
it is
boring,
the smart
actually.
answer.
Boring possible.
I can't. I don't know.
You can't.
No, I can't choose.
Answer the question.
Ah, my head just wants to say something stupid like Lowlands or Pipeline. Because I feel like if we're in a world where like all board games are banned, like I've got bigger problems. I'm not going to be playing many board games.
You can have one.
If you actually, if your board games are bad, you want to keep something like Pipeline. It's like,
A weapon.
yeah, this is like a weird artifact.
For when the Stasi come into my house to try and steal my board games. Yeah. Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
One final question to the lady in the very.
Oh, wow! That was amazing. You had a par of 2, -1.
In the description, you asked for silly questions. So here's a kind of personality type quest. It's a quest now.
A personality journey.
Yes. So if you, each of you, were a piece of board game, a counter, a card, a timer, what piece would you be?
Oh no, I've got it. I'm a sand timer. It's a piece that everyone is kind of. It's a tall piece that everyone is initially happy to see. But it's basically just anxiety. Just all of my anxiousness just condensed to that. I'm running out of time now. If we do this.
Yeah. I'm one of the small cards, like not the full-size cards, one of the little cards you get. It's like initially a novelty, just quickly becomes quite annoying and grubby.
I haven't got a good one. Maybe I'm paper money. It's consistent and kind of irritating. I don't know. That's a good question, though.
That's sort of a continuation of the real thing, a facsimile of because next generation down kind of. This isn't working.
I think yeah.
Congratulations,
yeah.
quest complete. 100 XP!
Now we've completed the quest, we have a personality. Finally.
We will be. Thank you all very much for coming. It's very sweet. It's a very hot room. If anybody would like to.
You're wearing a jumper.
Take it off.
It's just like, I realise you're like, it's so hot. It's like, why are you wearing a jumper?
I'm going to take my clothes off, but if anyone would like to say behind for autographs or photographs, then we will be around for probably about another 20 minutes before we have to shoot up.
That sounds about right.
Thank you all very much for coming. Everybody give some round.
We should, woo! We should also mention that we've got 2 more shows. We've got Cardboard Courtroom and we've got a podcast, and I don't know when they're happening, but you can find out somewhere.
Perfect. I need some more sparky stuff then. Hello.
Oh, yes. Oh, really? Oh, cool. Oh, really? Oh, you enjoyed that.